Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The sports calendar shifts its focus to college hoops, and what better way to lock in than with Kansas against Arizona on Monday night. Also, the Nuggets were struggling before the Cavs came to town, and the Seahawks' future hinges on their next offensive coordinator hire. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
It was a top 10 showdown that lived up to its billing. The Arizona Wildcats and the Kansas Jayhawks. Arizona coming in 23-0. Locked On Wildcats host Leif Thulin reacted to Arizona's trip to Allen Fieldhouse and how it impacts the Wildcats' aspiration of winning the Big 12.
First and foremost, Arizona went down, and the story to me, of course, the first narrative is going to be Darren Peterson didn't play. So I want to address that at the start. Darren Peterson didn't play, and yeah, that doesn't help the story of losing the game, but I will say this. Darren Peterson plays, and they play slower. They're ranked 199th in pace for their whole season. He's missed nearly half their games, and in the games he's played, they're even slower than 200th. So all of a sudden they play at breakneck speed, and that's an adjustment. I give no excuses for Arizona not doing so, but I do think it impacted the game. Now, the real story is Arizona had three players that you can say dependably bring their lunch pail and ball out, and they all sucked. Koa Pete, who I think is dealing with an ankle injury and had no explosion, was really bothered by the size and length of Bryson Tiller and Flory Badunga. He went 2 of 11. Tobe Awaka was the best rebounder in the country, hands down. Did not rebound effectively, did not score effectively, played with very little force and very little impact on the game. I haven't said that once this season. I don't expect to say it many times. And then Jaden Bradley, the All-American point guard, was atrocious. Jaden Bradley had no feel of this game. It's one thing to miss shots. And yes, he missed a lot of easy shots, but I thought he took bad shots. I thought he had needless errors. And I thought the control of the game, the shots Arizona took when at desperate times, was very poor. And to me, that's where the game was lost. That and the frenetic pace that Kansas instituted by virtue of playing more quickly without Darren Peterson caused Mo Krivas, who was the best player on the floor for 25 minutes in this game, to fatigue. And once Mo Krivas fatigued, usually Arizona's depth prevails. Usually Arizona wears the other team down. Usually Arizona is going to get such great shots and such easy shots because the whole time the other team's dealing with foul pressure. The other team is exhausted from trying to bash with Krivas, Awaka, and Pete and the speed of Bradley and Burries. Instead, Arizona looked exhausted, and the front court was completely dominated for the final 15 minutes of the game. I never expected to say that sentence. Once Krivas fatigued, it was evident. It's right when Flory Badunga started getting active. Flory Badunga had the alley-oop and won. Flory Badunga cut a high-low and finished. Flory Badunga went up and under and scored on Krivas. Do I fault Krivas? Absolutely not. I thought Krivas was fantastic. I thought Koa Pete, Jaden Bradley, and Tobe Awaka were listless. I thought they played very poorly. I think that Tommy Lloyd coached poorly in the sense of not to say like he didn't have a good game plan and not to say that he didn't adjust well. I think that in the times where Arizona struggled, he let them play too long, whereas Bill Self called timeouts immediately when Arizona built a 6-point lead in the first half. When Arizona built their largest lead of the game in the early goings of the second half, Bill Self called a timeout. Bill Self was very intentional how he attacked out of his ATOs. And Arizona is typically dominant on the glass. Arizona is typically dominant on the interior and their points in the paint and their paint-oriented points. They weren't. They were +2 in points in the paint against a team in Kansas who doesn't score that much from the paint. They were only narrowly ahead in rebounds against a team that does not offensive rebound. Kansas had more second chance points than Arizona. Kansas converted more while having fewer offensive rebounds. Kansas is 15th in the Big 12 in offensive rebounds. So all of a sudden, Arizona is the best rebounding team in the country, more or less, just behind Florida, gets out-rebounded by a team that's 15th out of 16 teams in the Big 12. And then you add the hallowed halls of Fog Allen, and that matters to me. and the fans and the raucousness and the adjustments and the pace, you're not going to win that game. But Arizona was darn close. Like, you want the bright side of this? Arizona, and I'll give you real silver linings, but I want to say this. For 30 minutes of this game, Arizona was the better team despite playing poorly. I wrote this note about 3 minutes into the second half. The bright side, shooting over 50% from the field and have yet to trail 28 minutes in. So I guess it was 8 minutes in the second half. Downside, Kansas has made the game ugly and frantic, playing quickly, and it feels like Kansas is in control, even though Arizona's up and has yet to really feel danger. I wrote this note at halftime. Tiller and McDowell, fantastic, but the pace, the biggest thing to note is the pace. And that allows Kansas to stay in it by playing super quickly in Arizona, not getting set on defense. Arizona was better, got more shots at the rim, but they didn't convert as many as they often do, never trailed, but it felt like a poor half. I think Arizona should win because they'll get more good shots throughout the rest of the game. But Krivas and Burries were the only players who played well.
Stay up to date all year on the Arizona Wildcats by subscribing to Locked On Wildcats on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. You're Locked On Sports today. Coming up, the Nuggets were in need of a feel-good win as the Cavaliers rolled into Denver. Before we get to that, Charles Bediako is eligible no more. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. That's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events is finding your angle on the sports you care about the most. FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. It's the building drama of curling matches, races defined by inches or fractions of a second. Both popular and niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better place to follow them with FanDuel. Play your game. For some, it will be heralded as a huge win for college athletics. Alabama center Charles Bediako, who returned to college hoops this year after he left the Crimson Tide to play professional basketball, has been ruled ineligible to play. The former G Leaguer appeared in 5 games this season before Tuscaloosa County Circuit Judge Daniel Pruitt halted Bediako's bid to regain eligibility. While it's unclear whether or not Alabama will be punished in any way, the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee has made their stance on the matter clear. They will evaluate the Crimson Tide by the roster that it has available for March Madness. So the 3 big wins Bama picked up with Bediako on the court are now more or less irrelevant. But what's not is the decision to remove him from the team, hopefully giving the NCAA some footing as they try to reserve college sports for, college athletes. The United States women's hockey team crushed their competition yet again, throttling Switzerland 5-0 for their 3rd straight win at the Milan Cortina Games. Despite a stout showing from the Swiss early, with goalie Andrea Brandley stopping 35 of the first 37 shots she faced, USA eventually wore them down. Canada, the defending Olympic champion, will face the U.S. later this evening. Over in the NBA, the Hornets had their winning streak snapped by the Pistons.
Host of Locked On Pistons podcast, Kuka Hill here. I can't even get the intro out without laughing, bro. I don't even know how to talk about the game, bro. There's no way we can talk about the game. This brawl was maybe the funniest thing I've witnessed all year, bro. I don't have anything to say about the Pistons won. Cool. The NBA's treating Stu like he's King Von. like he walks onto the court, everyone's just terrified, bro. Jalen Duren's over here bobbing and weaving 5+ punches. He's looking like Muhammad Ali out here. And that was the funniest thing that game was the funniest thing I have witnessed all year, bro. Stu came running out the screen like he was on the WWE ramp, bro. He came in like he was on a Rumble entrance, bro. That was just, bro. If you haven't seen it, bro, you guys, for Locked On NBA, you guys should definitely take the chance at copyright. Play 30 seconds, bro. Just the 30 seconds. Let them see Stu run out of nowhere onto the screen, bro. It's the funniest thing you'll see, bro.
The Nuggets are playing 500 ball at a time when they really can't afford to in the Western Conference. Thankfully, they got the Cavs on Monday night, who happened to be 8-2 over their last 10 games before clashing with Denver. Yeah, sounds great. Danny Cunningham reacted to the game on a postcast edition of Locked On Cavaliers last night.
The Cavs getting a 119-117 win over the Denver Nuggets on Monday night. I think this is the win of the season. Like, I think that the Cavs have had several nice wins, right? Like, they've won now 33 games on the season. They've won 9 out of 10. They've won 12 out of 15. Like, there's a lot of good things that have happened lately. But as you go through some of their wins, obviously some are more impressive than others. And this is not for me to say that they haven't had several other very good wins, because unquestionably they have. But this, to me, is the most impressive one that they've had for several different reasons. One, the Denver Nuggets are a very, very good basketball team, and Denver has dealt with injuries, no question about it, but the Nuggets have, in my opinion, the best player in the world, Nikola Jokic, on the floor, played 35 minutes or whatever it was in this game. Like, he is just at a different level, I think, than anybody else playing the game of basketball right now. They have Jamal Murray, who's been very, very good this season. Not the best guard in this game, but been very, very good this season. They're playing at home. The Cavs are in the fifth and final game of an 11-day West Coast road trip. Like, I thought for most of this game, and a big part of the reason why I'm so impressed with this win is I thought it would have been really easy for this Cavs team to, at the start of the fourth quarter, let go of the rope. Nobody would have blamed them. I think everybody, if you're watching or listening to this show, if the Cavs would have, when they were down by 11 in the fourth quarter, if they would have just lost this game by like 8 points, I think the feeling probably would have been they played hard. It didn't go their way. They didn't shoot well. The Nuggets got to the free throw line a ton. Like, there could have been things to be upset about, but I think the totality of the road trip still would have been a positive one. But the fact that they just kept at it, they kept hammering away, they kept keeping their head down and pushing forward and trying to find a way to get a win, that to me is what makes this so impressive, because they did it against a team that I think is very capable of winning the NBA championship in June. Like, that is a team, if the Denver Nuggets win the finals in June, I wouldn't be surprised. And the Cavs went into their building while they were exhausted, while they are a new team where they have not had a practice yet with James Harden. And they went in and they found a way to come back from down 11 points in the fourth quarter to get a win. And that to me just really stands out, because this is something that I don't want to say the Cavs were not capable of earlier this season, because we've seen the Cavs in far more often than not, when we would see the Cavs trailing the way they were at the start of this fourth quarter, they would make a comeback and then it's not enough. They couldn't find a way to get over that hump, but they found a way to get over the hump in this game. And doing that against an awesome team in Denver, I look at and just say that is incredibly impressive, especially while, and one of the things I do want to talk about today, like, this is game 2 of the Donovan Mitchell, James Harden experience. I think if this is what we're getting in game 2, and I thought both of them were very good in this game, and James Harden came up clutch, the 3-pointer that he hit to tie it with, I think, like 35 or 36 seconds left in regulation. He was fouled on the play too. That was not called. I am fascinated to see the last 2-minute report that comes out on Tuesday of this game, because I felt like Zach Zarba and the officiating crew did not have a very good night in Denver. I did not think this was a very well officiated game. I thought that Harden was fouled on that 3-pointer. Nothing was called, but made it, tied the game. Huge shot, huge play from him. I thought in like the scoring in the fourth quarter from Harden wasn't crazy. Like, he didn't take over the fourth quarter with scoring the same way that he did against Sacramento. Like, he only in the fourth quarter had 6 points. He had 2 threes. Both of them were big shots, but he had 4 assists. He had 4 rebounds, played 10 minutes, was a plus 13 in those 10 minutes. Like, he did so many things, I felt like, that impacted winning in the fourth quarter of this basketball game. And with Harden, it's not always going to be scoring. Like, I do think that in the 2 games that he's played for the Cavs, he has shown himself. And if you are not familiar with James Harden, like if you are a Cavs fan that maybe you are a Cavs fan that your only experience with watching James Harden has been when James Harden has played the Cavs. And then for the most part, other than that, or maybe watching the playoffs, he could be a guy that's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And there's no shame in that. Like, I completely get that type of, viewing experience. But I think in these 2 games, if that is an accurate description of you, I think you have learned what kind of basketball savant this guy is.
Stay up to date all year on the Cleveland Cavaliers by subscribing to Locked On Cavs on your favorite podcast app. Coming up, the Seahawks can push to go back-to-back if they get their OC hire right. The Seattle Seahawks have the tools in place to make another push for the Super Bowl next season. According to Locked On NFL host Tyler Rowland and Lauren Cox, it all depends on who they hire as offensive coordinator now that Clint Kubiak is off to Vegas.
I am looking at Seattle and wondering, are they going to be able to bounce back from that? Can Mike McDonald do it again? And like we've seen in Philadelphia with Nick Sirianni, he's been able to get it right a couple of times, but it took him getting it wrong a couple of times too. What's your confidence level in Mike McDonald to get a good offensive coordinator to keep the Seahawks at the level that they were at this year?
Yeah, it took Mike McDonald a time getting it wrong too with Ryan Grubb, like you mentioned.
Yes.
So I think on the one hand for Seahawks fans, it's like, well, he did find a way to get Kubiak. On the other hand, he got it wrong too. So he's kind of shooting 50-50 at this point in the process. But the real challenge there too is that not only do you lose your offensive coordinator, but when he goes and takes a head coaching job in Las Vegas, he starts to bring some of his own guys with it. There's talk that quarterbacks coach Andrew Janocko is going to come with and potentially be offensive coordinator there. So you're not just replacing one OC, but like a whole offensive staff of continuity getting broke. Maybe not the whole staff, but a large portion of the staff. Like I know he had talked about that they're probably going to promote somebody internally, most likely, but you're losing those internal candidates. And all of a sudden, do you have to branch out? And it's sort of a new risk every single time. It's just like a free agent versus like a guy you draft and develop, like an outside coach, outside player. You think it might work until you get him in the building and then see how he meshes with the players that you already have.
And that is why it's such a big problem. That's why it's the biggest test for a defensive-minded or CEO-level head coach. It's just hard to find good offensive minds off the scrap heap. And
It is going to be exceedingly hard for the Seahawks to replicate what we just witnessed. Not because they don't have a talented team. They do. But number one, it's going to be hard to replicate Clint Kubiak in Seattle. This was an offense that relied heavily on explosive plays, and Kubiak was expert at scheming those up. They also just won a Super Bowl with a quarterback who led the league in turnovers. That's probably not going to happen again. You're not going to be able to withstand that effort. And in terms of dollars lost, so contracts on the shelf at the end of the year, money on IR, Seattle was at the very bottom of the NFL. They had fewer major injuries in terms of money players than any other team in the NFL. Those things are just likely not going to happen again. And finally, Jason Tatum could be nearing a return. Recovering from a torn Achilles suffered last May, Tatum took a big step as the Celtics assigned him to practice with their G League affiliate, the Maine Celtics. After the session, Tatum will be recalled and continue his rehab. While he questions whether or not his return could upset team chemistry, President of Operations Brad Stevens, well, he couldn't care less. Obviously, any team with Tatum is going to be better, Stevens said Friday. If he needs to hear it, I'll tell him every day. If he does push to return, the move could push Boston past the rest of the East for good. Coming up, a top 15 Big Ten matchup between Nebraska and Purdue leads a loaded Tuesday night of college hoops. So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.